current version, I really wish I had one. I could pause. If you want to pause, I could grab one of those. I'll just explain it. We wanted, okay, because people could monkey with, or the rotation could change, could degrade on original Rolling Thunder. Whenever someone was going for a record, we would mail them a new one, a brand new one, to try to keep it legitimate, so that it was like a standardized event. And even that didn't really work that well. We said, look, ideally, we would have something that people could demonstrate or test on the spot as far as its legality goes. So we designed a Rolling Thunder so that you lift up the triangular handle. If it drops under its own weight, it's legal. Simple as that. I mean, guys spin the handle. Okay, that doesn't mean anything. Okay, that's a subjective rating. This is totally objective. We designed it to do that. When that frame drops, it's legal. If it gets hung up, it's not legal. Simple as that. And that was the big change. And it's popular. Now, why do you like it?
I mean, sad story so far. I don't own one myself yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I went to the US in 2018, and I decided to use my budget to buy 4 grippers and the little big horn.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine back in the day asked me to buy him the Rolling Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
And the little big horn, because he already had the grippers. He's Bruno, the one related to arm lifting. So
yeah.
So he has the Rolling Thunder, but I was like, maybe in the future. Yeah. And then, like up to this day, I invested in grippers into the finish ball, and I bought a lot of other equipment. I bought myself the squat rack, the bar, the calibrated plates. So I haven't done it yet, but it's on my wish list. That's definitely.
Good. It's a good product.
And actually, it's related to my next question, which is the Crush to Dust certification.
Right.
How was it born? It was like after you created the Rolling Thunder and the hub, or how was it?
I want to back up, if I could, say one more thing or two about the Rolling Thunder.
Yes,
so we started these Rolling Thunder contests, and I'll tell you a couple of funny stories. So we would run world championships in conjunction with major strongman contests, and the Mohegan Sun had a couple, and people were amazed. And Mohegan Sun's a giant casino in Connecticut, and Ode Hogan would hold group contests there, and we would have Rolling Thunder World Championships. Guys like Mark Felix, Brian Shaw would be in, guys like that, and crowds would be drawn to this. And some people were kind of amazed, like, why are people watching? So it had some magnetism. And at Fortissimus, Paul Old's big strongman contest in Quebec some years ago, we had a Rolling Thunder contest one year, and Paul was amazed. He says, look at all these people watching them. They're just lifting this thing up, this Rolling Thunder. But people can kind of appreciate it. I don't know if everyone can kind of relate to the story of Excalibur trying to pull the sword out, but people can kind of understand the Rolling Thunder. They can walk by and go, oh, try that. And so now going to Crush to Dust. Crush to Dust was supposed to, be a fun, good, easy way to test and demonstrate your grip strength. And at a level that we felt was achievable. So I feel that, you have to be genetically gifted, I think, to close a number 3 or beyond. But I think a number two is like saying honest 400-pound squat, honest 400-pound squat, not just a squat. Anyone could achieve that. Anyone sort of like in the normal, spectrum, roughly normal, average, whatever. Number 2 is like that. Number two is not, closing a number 2 legitimately is not an insignificant feat of strength. We tell people that if your life or someone else's might depend on how strong your hands are, you should be able to close a number 2 gripper. Beyond that, it might not matter. Less than that, you'll be at a disadvantage. I mean, we've had over the years, you can imagine, colorful stories that we've gotten from customers who use Captain's Crush grippers. And one was a cop, and he lost his weapon in a scuffle with a bad guy. He said, I grabbed him by the balls. I can close the number 2 gripper. I don't even have to tell you the rest of the story. Okay. So anyway, so that was the idea on it, basically, that to hit a level that was achievable by most people, for most people, and a bit of a challenge, but it was within reach. And so we feel that, there used to be this idea that, it's another thing that's kind of like perpetuated, like supporting crushing. What was the third thing that they used? Holding, I don't know what, but they didn't really make sense. Okay. And all that basically really originated from Warren Tedding, by the way. And Ironmind, modified a little bit, but then we changed it. And if you take a look at the Crush to Dust Cube, it's a publication that we put out. You can get it free on our website. We have a completely different view of strength, the hand strength. It's either the thumb's the prime mover or these four fingers, okay? And then it's either open or closed and either, 1 rep max or duration endurance. But, we needed something. So closing a gripper, okay, it's crushing grip, what we call crushing grip. It's the flexors, and these four fingers. You need to get the thumb in there, okay? And we try to explain to people the importance of thumb strength. We say, look, again, say using the idea of, close quarters combat or something like that, maybe a SWAT officer or something. Got a guy by the wrist, trying to cuff him. Okay, that's going to be crushing grip. Okay, if you only got him by the arm, upper arm, that's going to come down probably the strength of your thumb. The strength of your thumb, you don't think of that often. But in some situations, it's the limiting factor in terms of how strong your grip is. So we felt we needed that, and that was the hub. Part 2 in the hub, okay, the hub's got the idea of hub lifting. It's got tremendous historical significance in the grip world, in the strength world. Carl Norberg, okay, he was like, I don't know, maybe about 80 years old or something like that. He could lift a old style, and you guys would know what you call them now. Deep dish, I think, York 45 with 3 10s on it. This man was a longshoreman before that, in life, and he was about 80. I think he could do that. So, and lifting a York 45 was always, by the hub, sort of a standard feat of strength. And on the hub poster that we have, I think I've got this story in there about Sultan Rachmanov, a great Ukrainian weightlifter. And he would slap 25-kilo plates on the bar for doing squats. He'd just pick them up by the hub and slam them on. And I've got this picture of the palm of his hand that if you've never seen, you will want to see it as a grip person. I mean, they said, look, it's like a baby's butt. His hand is, I mean, you wouldn't believe how thick his hand was. So that was the reason for that. And then, going back to what we were just talking about, the thing that piqued your curiosity, the Rolling Thunder, which is really another really elemental way to test people's grip strength. And so those are the 3 elements. It's fun. People love it. And if you can do that, I mean, you got a bona fide, like way above average all-around grip.
And Randall, what about the Little Big Horn? That's one I have mine since 2018, and I love it. Actually, the next grip championship that we are going to host here in Chile, it's going to have a Little Big Horn in it. So cool. I want to know what's the origin of that that tool. I can think of David Horn has a cone shape lift as well, but I guess you were the first one, right? How was it?
Once again, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. If they imitate you, they're flattering you, and a lot of people imitate. Once again, let's go back to Richard Sword. Richard liked to collect old anvils. And yeah, and it's from the horn on an anvil. And we said, okay, let's make this reproducible. Otherwise, you end up again, it's sort of like with the grippers, if people were doing whatever to try to close them, or grippers were extremely variable. If one day you got a gripper that has spread like that, and the next day it was like in an inch, and okay. And you'd hear these stories, well, I lifted, an anvil, it's sort of like the fish that got away, and we wanted to standardize that and honor that tradition. So that's where it comes from, that classic feat of strength of lifting an anvil by its horn. And yeah, it's been popular because, I mean, look how many people have copied that, that kind of thing. But I'm going to say something about that too. I think that, this is, people say, well, this is, just a self-serving comment, Ted's. But a lot of people in the grip community have done a disservice to grip overall in their interest to say what they could copy and sell themselves from Ironmind and so on and so forth, or change this rule, that rule. It's sort of like what happened in powerlifting. Powerlifting got way weaker rather than way stronger when you ended up with 15,000 different organizations, okay? And, when you don't have standardization, you can't really tell. Okay, the reason why Olympic records or Olympic sports are a good measure of how good you really are at something is because you've had consistent tests of that event. many people, many years, many places. Now you know what's a good time or good height, you know, good distance. And when you start doing all these variations, it becomes, you know, it's sort of like, you know, you love them, but you know, when you do things like all around weightlifting and you've got like 10,000 lifts, then suddenly like you got a teenager who power cleans and jerks 90 kilos at 90 kilos body weight, you know, he's like the world champion. Well, excuse me, you know, there are teenagers that body weight who have snatched 190 kilos, 190, not a 90 kilo power clean, 190 kilos snatch. Okay. So, it's, you know, it's good, you know, if you really want to build grip, to not just kind of like, okay, let's do every possible variation. Let's have some standardized things. And that was our interest, Ironminds, was to have standardized implements that people could use, and they go, you know, people try them all over the world and so on and so forth. But that was the origin, and some people really gravitate toward it. I'm glad you like that.
Randall, we have some questions from the audience.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Some are from the Gripboard, some are from Instagram, and I think that's it. But before jumping into that, I wanted to hear from you. Which are the future challenges for Ironmind related to the grip world?
Future challenges? You mean you think I would tell you ahead of time, as much as I like you, what we're going to do?
No. I just want to know if you have like, will you do something new, or will you try to grow to any country that you haven't like sell anything before? Like, do you want to grow, that kind of thing?
Okay.
Detail,
yeah, this is a very interesting question, because okay, so when we started Ironmind, you can tell, I mean, it's now what people would call artisanal, okay, like pride of craftsmanship and, you know, stuff like that, and small, and that was intentional. And my original inspiration for that was the original Chenard catalog. Okay, Chenard then, you know, became Black Diamond in Patagonia. Okay, it was originally, which one? Originally, might have been Black Diamond first. I don't even remember. But they had a terrible major lawsuit. Okay, and they split the company. And Patagonia took all the clothing, and Black Diamond took all the climbing coat and stuff. But the original, if people can find it, maybe from about, I'll say 1973 or so, Chenard catalog, where they had these really specialized things. I mean, at that time, state-of-the-art climbing boots made in Austria with wooden pegs holding the soles in, and, you know, authentic rugby shirts from England, and so on and so forth. And I thought, boy, this is really cool. These guys are really specialized, and I'd like to kind of do something like that. And so that was sort of always our vision. And then what's happened in the meantime, fueled really by CrossFit. You got to give Greg Glassman like all the credit in the world for that. His vision was, you know, to make CrossFit really big. And he even said, you know, I can never in my wildest dreams have imagined it got as big as it did. But that just caused a sea change in the strength and fitness world. I mean, all that, I think, I would say, you know, Greg Glassman, okay, so maybe, you know, some of these cardio video people too, but CrossFit was really what changed a lot. And then things became industrial scale, okay? And now you've got, I mean, companies like Rogue. I mean, Rogue is huge. I mean, industrial, like we're like, I mean, we might be Bugatti, but it's the same. It's like the sales, you know, the number of cars made compared to, you know, like Ford or something like that. And we've always had this idea that that's what we wanted to be, was small. And, you know, it's interesting. I live in a place called Nevada City, California, small little place. A couple thousand people moved from the San Francisco Bay Area. This is where the gold rush, by the way, took place in California. It's what originally put California on the map. And our business is really well suited for where we are. If I had stayed in Marin County or, you know, Palo Alto, someplace in the Bay Area, Ironmind just would not have been viable. Then we would have had to have this mentality that you want to be industrial scale. Up where I live, you know, that's fine to be an artisan, and that was sort of our vision, and always has been. That won't change.
Perfect. So let's jump into questions from followers. From California, Mr. Mike Corlett.
Hub Geezer.
Yes, Hub Geezer. He wants me to tell you. He says he read Milo magazine for many years and had this question to ask you. what part of the Iron game was or is your favorite part? He knows it's not powerlifting or bodybuilding.
Yeah,
So
not power.
what is
No.
it?
Yeah, interesting question, Mike. When I was a teenager, I liked powerlifting a lot. I think part of it was sort of like this base primal attraction, and I really wasn't very interested in weightlifting. And then weightlifting, obviously, I spent a lot of time, weightlifting constantly. I loved weightlifting. And, a lot of people will, say, I knew that guy was evil. Strongman, I always liked, but I really, there was part of it that just became too over the top. Ricky Dale Crane was a top squatter in powerlifting, roughly my age. He had a wise comment sort of about strongman and powerlifting in that he said, not everything has got to be like pro wrestling, sort of really hamming things up. So leading to, coming back to what the reason why I said that is that when I would get tired of one strength sport, I always had the advantage I could go to another, because I found that very often the script was kind of the same, the set was a little different, the people in the parts were a little different, but the roles they were playing were similar. And so get tired of weightlifting, I go strongman for a while, and then arm wrestling. They always have all these different things to look at. But going to Great Highland Games contests was always refreshing. Okay. And Bill Kazmaier and I have had conversations about this. You go, say, a Sunday morning and you're in Scotland and you can see some hills in the background. They're playing Amazing Grace of bagpipes. I mean, it's mind-bending. And being outside, I always loved being outside. And so Highland Games always had that pull. But weightlifting is, it's kind of funny because I go to weightlifting contests and it's always like the same bar, the same list, the same plates, and it never really got boring. So, weightlifting, yeah, obviously, I'm sorry, Mike, I don't consider bodybuilding a strength sport. People say to me, they say, well, Arnold could, because Arnold used to be governor of California, after being a bodybuilding actor. They said, well, Arnold could close the 3, couldn't I? I said, well, he could maybe lift it up. But when he was governor, we sent him a number one, I think it was the number one, to help him. He had some problems with some unruly people. There, I think in the Senate or something, and he was really grateful for that. Wrote back a really funny note about, the strength was helping him throttle people who were stepping out of line. So yeah, Mike, I hope that answers it. So definitely not. And powerlifting now, partly because it got so splintered, and then the list may just say this, they don't mean anything to me. It's sort of like a deep set, in a gripper, the stuff people put on. I mean, Louis Simmons' line used to be that if you're benching, you're trying to bench 400 pounds, okay, your shirt should be so tight that you can't touch 375. Okay, think about that, right? And I haven't watched these lists for a long time. And people would say, like, the hardest part is like the row to get the bar to touch, because the shirt is pushing up so hard. So powerlifting, maybe I shouldn't say that they did themselves in, it's they changed it. And there's probably federations out there that would be analogous to what we did by getting rid of the deep set for our certifications and that 1-year trial, the 1-inch rule. The people still say, a bench press is like in a t-shirt or no shirt. You got to remember, Pat Casey bench pressed 600 pounds in a singlet. I don't think he was even wearing a t-shirt. And to call that lift, the same as what people are doing now, it's just not right, in my opinion.
Perfect. Do you know these?
I'm sorry. Can I say one other thing though? Mike,
sure.
So Mike's got a track background, and throwing was never something. I've talked to some of my friends like Tom Hertz about this, and talked to Bruce Wellham about this. Throwing, I can never understand the intrinsic appeal in throwing, whereas lifting made sense to me. Can I lift this? But how far can I throw it? Just a shot put, hammer. I never really understood that. Anyway, sorry.
There's a grip athlete who certified recently into the number 3, I think, and he also did the crush to dust. Ben Helms.
Right.
Does the name sound familiar?
Yes, right.
Ben wants to know.
Did them both, right? Did Ben? I think, did he do them both at the same time or not? Were they? I thought someone did. Was that Ben?
I'm not sure. Not sure if it was Ben, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did, because he could clean and press the Inch Dumbbell, so he's strong.
Yeah.
Well, he wants to know what's the heaviest COC level you have closed.
Yeah, be honest. Okay, it was a Silver Crush 2. Okay, and I could only do that on a good day. And I would say that when I was doing a 1 for 10 reps, I mean, back then, that was already somewhat unusual, but I'm not gifted, okay? And I'm not gifted as a strength athlete. And people kind of look at me and they say, gosh, you Ironmind, Captain's Crush and all this stuff. And I used to kid people like years and years ago, like at Highland Games contests, I'd point to Jim McGoldrick as world champion then. And he was like top, not like the Olympic gold medalist level, but really a very decent, respectable discus thrower and, looked the part. And I'd point to him. I mean, you see what I look like. I'm not standing up, but I'd say, that's Randall Strossen over there, and go, oh. Anyway, so part of the appeal to me for all this was that I wasn't good at it. And it was sort of like people looking at Richard when he was closing at 3, when most people couldn't close at 2, who thought they were strong. So no, I was never great. Yeah. Although, I would say this, it's really kind of funny. The first time I brought grippers to Petaluma, World Wrestling Championships, the most famous contest in that world, in the entire world for a really long time. First time I went, I don't think I found anyone who could even close a 1 there. Yeah. But yeah, merely a 2. And that was on a good day. But you do know, right, of course, that silver crush grippers were harder to close. Chrome-plated handles, slipperier. I'm kidding, but probably, pretty equal to COC2. But yeah, that was only on a good day.
We have questions from many countries, not just from the US. The next one is from Germany. Mm-hmm. I have a question before saying the question from the audience. When the rules were changed for the certification, example, when someone certified that year with the 1-inch rule, when you put the credit card rule, did the people with the 1-inch rule lost their certification, or did they remain?
See, I'm glad you asked this, because some people felt very strongly we should boot them, kick them off the list. We've only kicked a couple of people off any of the lists ever, and that was for like really grossly unsportsmanship like behavior. Like you get, you probably know who Piros Dimas is, okay? The weightlifter. The year that he won, came down the last lift, and the guy who was taking a clean and jerk was being booed by partisan Greek fan. They wanted Piros to win. The guy missed the jerk. And so the guy at the awards ceremony put his medal on the podium. He didn't throw it. He didn't curse or anything. He put the medal on the podium because he felt that he had lost unfairly. Okay. The IOC, the International Olympic Committee, took such offense at that, he was banned from the Olympics for life for disrespecting, the sport. So anyway, we haven't had something, I don't want to describe the instance, but I think only 2 times we've ever booted people. And that's because they did things that were just so unbelievable, maybe a couple more than 2. But no, we felt that they shouldn't. I'll explain to you why. I'm going to come, bring up, the subject of drug testing. Okay. So drug testing, the technology keeps changing. And, it's always this cat and mouse game. Okay. Obviously drugs work to enhance performance, or people want to take them, right? Okay. That's not so complicated to figure out. Okay. And this idea came along that they were going to go back and retest samples from earlier Olympics. And all of a sudden people, weightlifting is the sport I know about. Weightlifting is, quite a dirty sport, has been. All of a sudden people lost medals, and people who were in 4th place moved up. It might have been someone like in 4th ended up with a gold medal. I'm not sure. I mean, a lot of things happen. Okay. I can understand the motivation for that, but I don't think it's fair. Why don't I think it's fair? I think it's not fair because the person passed the test at the time, and to come along later with new technology and say retest, I don't think that's fair. And that's how I felt about this thing. Those were the rules at the time. They passed. Students of the game know that those rules were different for that 1 year. And we had at least one person who said, you know what? I'm going to come back and I'm going to recertify under the new rules. And they did that. See, because you got to understand, this is an important piece of history too. I mean, this is, one of the reasons why, as I say, I got at least one death threat when we changed that rule from the 1-inch. We got so much email from people about how this was impossible. No human could ever do it. Okay. And they're impossible, physically impossible. Could never be done. Right. And it took a while. Okay. And then someone did it. And that kind of broke the ice, and the rest is history, as they say. So that's why we didn't kick them off, though. And I know it's a hard one because say, okay, there's people, I don't know. And there are probably people, so some people figured out a way to cheat before we had referees. I don't know, but let's give people the benefit of the doubt. But I didn't feel it was fair to come in with today's test and kick those people out for the performance then.
Perfect. Because this question comes from Simon Mahalski.
Okay.
I think he's on the list.
From the
previous ones.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He wants to know what will become of Ironmind if you retire.
Yeah. I'm not sure. See, our original idea, and this kind of goes into the idea that we wanted an artisanal business. And I mentioned Chenard, but I would also say, kind of reflection of my age. I think of in Greenwich Village, the West Village, okay, say in New York, 60 years ago, 55 years ago. I was always attracted to specialty shops. I've never been someone who liked department stores, but specialty shops where people really know what it is that they're selling. Okay, they're experts, artists, artisanal, whatever. And the original idea with Ironmind was that, well, when we're done, we're just going to close the doors. And we're still kind of like, or would we sell part of it? But the original idea was always we're just going to close it when we're done. And, we stopped Milo, kind of lived out its time, 25 years. And I still enjoy coming to work. I used to work really a lot of hours. I mean, I always work 60, 70, 80 hours a week, year after year after year. Now my joke is I'm sort of like approaching the French work week, like 40 hours seems like really a lot. How about like 35? But I enjoy coming to the office as a different place to go, and I enjoy being involved. And grip is the one area where I still have involvement. I don't go to really any contests anymore. Expos. I never liked expos. I like contests, but I don't follow weightlifting anymore, strongman, and grip. I still follow a little bit. Not all the contests, but I follow the Ironmind stuff. And I gotta say again, I mean, guys out there are just amazing me. I mean, what you're doing now, the level of strength, the level of talent we're seeing out there. I'm happy to be part of that. So I don't know when I'll hang up my hat and what we'll do, whether we will just shutter or what we'll do at that point. But thanks for asking.
I hope it's not soon enough so I can buy more Ironmind stuff before it goes out, because it happens with grip companies. Some of them they last like 2 or 3 years, and that's why some people buy the whole set, because they know how long will they be around.
Our joke about like Milo, we hero, this person's starting this magazine or that. We say, well, it's easy to start. It's keeping going. That's the hard part. Yeah. You want to get our stuff while we're still making it, because I always get a kick out of the fact you can go on eBay and you can find used versions of things like Milo, back issues or grippers, and sometimes people are asking more than you could buy it, brand new directly from Ironmind. But we're very flattered by that. And I will tell you that we have a not insubstantial pile of earlier edition of the Captains of Crush and maybe even some Silver Crush grippers out there that someday we might put out there for connoisseurs to grab up, collectors. I'm very flattered by people want to collect these grippers.
If you put some of the original credit card, like the gray ones, I hope to be there. Like I don't know if there
cards.
are.
I don't know. I have we had people who would collect our catalogs, and I was really flattered by that. And we had someone who was only missing one catalog, and we had an extra, and we sent it to him, so I had a complete collection. Flattered by that. So yeah, thank you.
Well, this is another from Simon, and it is related to Mr. Joe Kinney.
Okay.
So,
let me grab a fire extinguisher.
I mean, I want to hear like I think you are the only person that who I could ask about Joe, because you were the one who invented the certification, and well, I want to know it from you. I know that he was the first to certify on the number 4 in 1998. I am just curious if you were the witness of that certificate.
No. See, this goes back to, I mentioned this earlier. That was still in the era. We only required a photo.
Okay.
Photo.
Okay.
No, there's no live witness. And, so let me say something else too about the rules, because, talk about the rules changing. Okay. I would say the only sea change in the rules was when we went to that 1 inch rule for 1 year and tried it. It was a disaster. Everything else is sort of incremental. Okay. And now I tell you a dark secret. Every rule that got added or the language got changed in some way was due to an infraction. Okay. And now group guys that want to entertain each other. Okay. You can go in and go like, okay, this rule, this must have followed so-and-so because he must have violated that. And then they had to put in the rule, you can't do this and you can't do that. And anyway, that was an example really showing why you really need to have more than just the photo. You know, you needed, live witness or something like that. And I think, with all due respect, I think Joe didn't make things any easier for himself by not doing some things in public to demonstrate that this was, was legitimately done. We did things that, we tried to do things that I won't describe to ensure that there wasn't any duplicity, but I won't describe them. I will also say they're not perfect. And what we do now for certifications got far fewer loopholes, although we recently saw such a brazen attempt, and had us fooled,
Well, coming back to the original question of Simon, what do you think of the old debate whether Joe Kinney is a fraud or not?
Yeah, so
I know that Simon thinks that he's legit. Yeah, I mean, that's what he believes. What do you think?
Yeah, well, we obviously believe that, and I went to a lot of links to explain why it was that we had certified him, and let's be honest, a lot of that came from. I mean, if you want, I'll name the name of the exact person. But there was someone who, and you could figure this out from the book probably, or maybe they were named in the book. It was jealousy and envy coming from one person that really fanned the flames on that. Okay. And that person had a social group, the Grip Board, behind him. And Joe Kinney was, an individual. Joe and I think, have that in common. We tend to not, but I think, because I've never met Joe in person and, obviously don't know him really well, but I travel like in a very small group of people. Like people say, oh, well, let's have this Ironmind, whatever. My wife says, gosh, she'd go, I don't want to be part of this group, But Joe was vulnerable too because of that. That's why people have that pack mentality. That's why, there's this thing, to show that you were, a member of the Grip Board in good standing. Where's the dog leg? Make sure, got my tag hanging here, the bot, all these things to show that you're in the club. Okay. The person who attacked Joe was in the club, and Joe was just one guy. And, the lone wolf is not going to do well against a pack. Well, maybe if it's a Texas Ranger, but I, of course, we believed, and as I say, I think Joe could have made things easier for himself. There were some things I wish he had done differently, the things I wish we had done differently. And subsequently, I hope people can see that, evolution has allowed us to kind of close a lot of the gaps in the whole certification thing. See, I'll tell you another thing. So, way back when, people could just use whatever gripper they wanted to certify. Now, and I know for a while on the Grip Board that, guys were like, there was one number 3 or something that all passed around and tried to get certified. They found one that they felt was easier and they'd all use it, And I know, I forgot what it's called, but the Grip Board thing, their certification, they have a set of grippers, right? It's just one, and they ship them around. So everyone uses
the Mushmaster, yes.
Mushmaster, whatever, yeah. And interestingly, of course, home of calibrating and rating, I understand like the decree was that they shall never be rated, calibrated, tested, or whatever. But you do need consistency. So I understood the reason for that, and this is sort of like what I told you we would do on the original Rolling Thunder. We'd mail a new one, so we knew it hadn't been tampered with or it hadn't degraded in some way. We switched, then we had to supply the gripper. That was another loophole we had to close. So Joe was already in that era where we had supplied the gripper, and we had a way to we thought make sure that it was in fact that gripper that was used. Joe, by the way, Joe lent me that gripper once. I brought it to an AOBS dinner, and I let Richard, try to close it if you wanted to. Richard's big supporter was Dale Harder. I don't know if Dale's still around. and he was sort of under Richard's wing, and he wrote something like speech strength ratings. He was, great at compiling things. And Dale would always go around to like the Pleasanton Island Games, carry this plastic bag with a hand dynamometer and go up to everyone, having them squeeze out the way I would go around with the number 3 and have people squeeze it. But yeah, I'd like to think Joe was legitimate too. And Joe, let's think of some things. Joe is the first person. Okay, Richard said, I'm going by memory, which, my age is kind of a risky thing. Richard told us he could close the number 3 with 2 fingers, which absolutely, blew our minds. And, again, you got to remember, Richard was so far above everyone else. And the idea of closing a 3 with 2 fingers was unbelievable. Joe was the first person to ever actually sent us a picture of that. Richard never did. Okay. Joe is also the first person, I think, that ever sent us a picture or video, I believe, of crushing a raw potato.
The potato.
Okay. And, that's phenomenal. And see, and Richard and John Brookfield, I think I have this in the book, they like, one said it was possible and one said it was impossible, or crushing a Coke can, and anyway, Joe did things that I think somewhat corroborated his, his hand strength. And he always had the right attitude. He either gets stronger or you're going to fall off, talking to his hand.
Perfect. I think 3 or 4 guys asked me this question. You kind of answered it before, but I would like to go into this anyway. This one is from Canada, from Steven Nugents. Maybe he's certified on the number 3. I'm not sure, but he's like, he wants to do it, maybe.
Okay.
But he wants to know if good Ironmind ever make a harder gripper than the number 4.
Yeah, kind of answer it. And, our plan was not to, and I think we're going to stick with that. Although I've got to tell you honestly, and thanks for asking about that, I started to reconsider that a little bit, because I think that we're not going to see a flood, but we're going to see someone else certifying the number 4 pretty soon, I think, and another person. And it's part of it, it's sort of like the 4-minute mile, like or the 500-pound clean and jerk, these barriers, and they become a big thing in people's minds. And then once someone does it, it's like getting rid of the 1-inch rule. People were convinced it was impossible. Someone showed that it was possible, and then all of a sudden a bunch of people did it. Now it's like, yeah, well, of course people can do this. So I don't know. We're thinking about, I'll tell you honestly, part of my concern, sure, absolutely, physically we can make one, but I'm not sure it's a good idea. I think that a gripper that'd be even harder than that. I think it would put such pressure in the soft tissue of your hand. I'm not sure I really think it's a good idea. And that's one reason why we like the Rolling Thunder, or Apollon's Axle. They're ways that you can test your grip strength without putting a lot of pressure on the soft tissue of your hand. And, it's like, at what point should a gripper not be any stronger than that? You could use something like a plate-loaded grip machine, but it's easy to cheat on that. The original world record holder in that I know of, the guy was clearly doing a deadlift and a shrug. It wasn't a feat of grip strength. If you could come up with a way to monitor that, that would be something. But I think if I had to bet, we're going to stick with not making anything tougher than the 4. But thanks for asking. Appreciate the interest.
Since we're discussing about the equipment, there's a question from a grip board member. His name is like club#0. I don't know his name, but well, he would like to ask you if you have any plans for producing a 2 3/8 axle.
No. That's simple. See, once again, okay, so in science, you call this parametric variation. All it means is a parameter is like a dimension. So all that means is like varying, say, a level of something. Oh, well, I have a 2-inch bar. Why don't you make a 2.5-inch bar? So I write this book, Super Squats, which is about 20 rep squats, right? Which is this legendary routine. I didn't make it up. I'm merely the reporter and a believer in it. I use them. I still do 20 rep squats. I did 20 rep squats this morning, and a guy said to me, and he was a very well-known bodybuilding writer, and he said, "Yeah, I love your book, Super Squats." He says, "Are you gonna do super bench press next and super deadlift?" So no, he was generalizing on the powerlifting dimension. Okay, no, that wasn't it at all. Not that at all. This was like a specific thing. Oh, I make a 2-inch bar. Why don't I make a 2.5-inch bar then? No, there was a reason why we made a 2-inch bar, and that was because that was sort of the classic dimension. and, roughly, what people would refer to as a thick bar historically. And you could do all sorts of bars, but as I say, that kind of, I think it weakens things until you had so many people competing, say, on a 2-inch bar that you really knew how strong they were. Otherwise, you just kind of water down all the results. Everyone becomes a world champion, because they're the only guy that's competing in that event. Appreciate the interest, but, quick answer, no, that one's easy.
Perfect. There's a question from another Captains of Crush number 3 and Crush to Dust certified, Mr. Derek Palmieri.
Okay, yeah.
This is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah.
He says, I would like to know what are his thoughts, what his thoughts were on the Tiano Shenanigans and how it affected rule changes.
Yeah. So a guy, okay, I don't know. I think I tend to, I start off giving people the benefit of the doubt, and I believe Tiziano, okay? And I probably should have said, this looks too easy. And I think guys on the grip board sensed, they smelled a rat and really got on it. And maybe I'm not going to say what it was, maybe he already put it on the grip board, but a guy on the grip board who was working on this asked me a question that I could answer that showed definitively that the gripper he used had not come from Ironmind. Okay. And I thought, the level of fraud, that this was so understood. The other comment we make is that, I'm not going to name a name, one of the people who I gather was most active and vocal in criticizing Tiziano was someone who is also quite adept at trying to sort of wiggle around the rules, not doing anything as flagrant as changing a spring in a gripper. But they, and I said, sort of takes one to know one to myself. But I think, so what I think on that one, I think, on the one hand, everyone in the grip community should be flattered by the fact that there's that much interest. That's the good way to look at it. We're flattered, okay, on all you guys out there training grip certified or, aspiring to be certified, it shows, what an important thing this is. I'm sort of disappointed, as a human that someone would do something like that. But, some people think cheating is fine. Go back to this thing that some people say, like, an athlete's job is to do whatever he can, to win, and, referees are there to catch him. So, as I say, the positive way to look at it is it shows that this thing really has importance, and it's really a sad thing that, he would do this. Bad for life too, so,
It is what it is. And Derek has a second question. It's more like a bonus question. Why is the short Ironmind loading pin not allowed for Crush to Dust?
Let me turn around and ask you. What do you think the answer would be to that? You or anybody else? Are people live? Can people throw in a reply live? Were these submitted ahead of time? Your questions, or are people watching this?
They gave them in advance
ahead of time.
Like before.
Okay, so we can't do live. Okay, so would you have a guess to that? What do you think the reason would be?
I think that if the loading pin is shorter, if it's shorter, it's harder to complete both of the lifts.
Yeah, it's standardization. That's the reason why. Okay, it's just to have it standardized once again. So and that's why it's got to be an Ironmind pin too, and that size. It's just to keep it completely standard. And you could say, well, it'd make it harder to do this or that. That's fine, but coming back to it's got to be standardized. Okay, 100 meters is 100 meters. Okay, so my friend the late Ken Leisner, he told me this story. Okay, Dr. Ken. He said, he wasn't really a weightlifting guy, he's a powerlifting guy, and evidently he's in a weightlifting contest, and he does a snatch and it's passed, but he's not happy with the form. And so he wants to take the lift over again to do it right. And they're telling him, no, young man, you can't do that. You've passed, you got to go to a different weight. But he wanted it done right. And anyway, it's the standardization thing, doing things right, consistency, and that's got to be a certain way. Okay, that's why you have rules, and that's why you can't say, okay, I'm going to do the same weight twice just because I'm not set. No, the rule is you got to go up. Okay. It's just the rule. Okay. So it's consistent.
And considering that the idea is that the classic loading pin from Ironmind is like the standard, why is it a shorter version? Why did you make a different pin?
Yeah. See, I think we started with just standard plate pin. Okay, let's back up this. Okay. I'm 72. When I was a teenager, having a York Olympic standard barbell set would be like, I've got a Ferrari. I mean, they were very rare. Okay. And then there were other top sets, okay, Olympic sets, but they were all super expensive compared to what we call exercise plates or standard plates. Okay. Enter, say, China, Taiwan, okay, places that are now making, what they would call Olympic plates, okay, at the same price per pound or per kilo as an exercise plate. So all of a sudden, plates that you would call Olympic plates, in other words, having a 2-inch diameter hole rather than, say, roughly like 1.1/8 diameter hole, became as prevalent as exercise plates used to be. When we started, that was not the case still. So we started with an exercise pin. Then so many people had, what people called Olympic plates, even if they're like these really junky plates that just happen to have 2-inch holes. That's why we went to the other pin. Why the extra length? Well, to start off with, a lot of so-called Olympic plates that were coming in then had higher flanges, and so they were thicker, and to allow you to get more weight on, we went 15 inches instead of 12. And also then with the idea that they'd be used in competition, heavier weights, we just wanted more loading space on there. So that's why. Good question.
Perfect. Perfect. Now we go to Australia from Mr. Isaac Pitt. He wants to know, what does Randall think of RGC ratings? Could Ironmind ever rate their grippers in this way in-house?
Yeah. Well, if you now listen to all this, that sort of what I think about that, and how actually I think the RGC ratings, were inspired by what we described, how we came up with their reference. I think they're a good, general frame of reference, but I'll go back to, there's no single index that I know of that would tell you how hard it is to close a gripper. In this calibration thing, I forgot about this. There was a guy, and luckily I can't quite come up with his name. Actually, I think I can, but I won't mention it. He used to do calibrations on grippers in his hand, and grippers he couldn't close. And I think he would give numbers out to like second or third decimal places. And so like a 3 would be the standard. So it'd be like, well, I think this is a 3.128. Oh, this is a 3.243. In his hand, he couldn't close the gripper. Okay. That gives you an idea of sort of an extreme case. Okay. Why do I say this thing about the single number? Okay. So I talked about how, you don't have universal agreement on, say where force is applied or exactly how that's done. But if you have that perfect, okay, all you have then is you've got the closing force. Okay. You can have the same closing force, but with a gripper with very different geometry, and it'll feel very different. What do I mean by that? Okay. So whatever number of pounds of force it takes to close this, say, however, Matt would want to test that, right? Or Ironmind would, okay? Now imagine a gripper that's going to take the same amount of closing force, but the spread's half the distance. Which gripper is easier to close?
The one with maybe the narrower?
Yeah, it's like deep setting, right? It's why deep setting is easier, right? Okay. Same force, right? But it's the strokes easier. So it puts in a different position in your hand, all of a sudden it becomes a lockout. Okay. Okay, knurling. Okay, you could take, gave you the example, oil in the hand, fresh knurling, and it can be noticeable, because knurling will smooth out in time. And also, the little pieces, that sounds gross, but, little pieces of skin, from your hand, chalk will build up. It's like, clean your handles off in between, it'll make a difference. But fresh handled grippers, easier to close. So that's sort of, it's a good general thing, but don't hang your hat on it for a be-all, end-all. And, I'm assuming Matt's really got this pretty dialed in, but the original ratings, they didn't replicate. In other words, the guy would test the same gripper twice and get different numbers, and even the rank orders would change. And then they didn't correspond to, they lack what you call validity. The numbers he got didn't correspond to the reality of what the gripper felt like or what the person could really do. So it's one of those things that people would like to believe in because it's easy, but don't think this is like checking your body weight where you just get on the scale in the morning and that number is what it is. It's a little more complicated.
Perfect. Well, this is my last question, like coming from curiosity. And correct me if I'm wrong. Did you used to sell Inch Dumbbells in Ironmind?
Oh, yeah, interesting question. Yeah, we did. We sold the original. Thanks for asking that. This brings back good memories. Someone's got to help me out. The name of the gentleman who made them, John Staver. Okay, he made them, and I said to him once, I said, John, how can you afford to make these? He said, my name's over the door. No, he had a foundry and he had this passion, and so he excuse me, he made three. He sent one to Richard Soren, one to Joe Kinney, and one to me. Okay. And mine was delivered. And I've already told you, like my, best performance on a gripper or a COC was like a number 2. I could tear a deck and a half of cards in half, no problem. But I was never like some great grip guy. Anyway, so, the truck, unloads this pallet with the Inch dumbbell, and my wife's going, lift it. I go, I can't possibly lift it. I'll lift it. So pick it up, I lift it. Oh, I'm not supposed to be able to lift this thing. Well, it turned out it was because the cardboard that it was on was still sticking to the bottom. And so it was keeping it from rotating. So I could pretend I'm a lawyer. Sorry, lawyers out there. I'll say, I have lifted an Inch dumbbell with additional weight. But so we did sell those for a while, and a wonderful story. I don't know how many of you guys know Jesse Morundi. Okay, Jesse was the first teenage Captain's Crush, and Jesse was the first person that I knew of, and demonstrated he could close a COC3 in each hand, and he always had strong grip. I guess he would go fishing in Alaska with his grandfather in the summer. He could catch, I guess, salmon as they're throwing through the air and went into the boat so that he could just catch them in his hand. But his mother wanted to surprise Jesse with an Inch dumbbell for Christmas, and it was ordered really late. We said, we'll do our best. Okay. And we managed to get it to within striking distance, but it was in a rail car that they weren't scheduled to load until after Christmas.
Ooh.
And we were able to get them to send someone down. So I told them the story of guy's mother's buying it for him. It's really a special gift. He said, I will personally go down, unlock that car, and look for that dumbbell, find in there and get it to them. And then Grant Higa, I think, also helped on some of that. And we managed to get him the dumbbell. But that's how special that was, the Inch dumbbell. People really wanted it. And since then, there were, other companies made, because John stopped. I'm going to tell you one more thing about that original batch. They actually were 157.5, as I recall. They were a little light. And I will guarantee you that if you put one of those next to the full weight one, you would not be able to tell the difference visually. You'd have, you could go measure it and you could, but you just glance at that. And so knowing that Richard had one of the 157.5s, okay, when Mark Henry did that clean and press with the Inch at the AOBS, and because Terry Todd, may rest in peace, was involved with it, some people thought that might have actually been the 157, which is, part of, strength. I'd like to think, it wasn't, but some people said, considering who was involved in that, maybe that was not the, because there were very few of us who knew about the existence of the 157.
Okay, because there's a guy really involved into grip whose name is Charles Strange, and he has an Ironmind Inch dumbbell, and this is what made me curious. He says that that's the hardest Inch dumbbell that he have tried to lift. Like the Ironmind Inch dumbbell is the hardest, Yeah.
John Staver, I'm thinking, it's sort of been like the Halls when they did, replica of the Apple on wheels. I think that John was probably really conscientious. I don't know if other people are as conscientious. I would say too, I've got, this is thanks completely to Richard Soren, I've got one of the original blobs, and
wow.
I'd like to see that go to someone who would really like that. But Richard, cut those two dumbbells up, and he sent one to Dr. Ken and one to me. He had one. I don't know what happened to the fourth half. And I ended up getting mine's autographed to Ken, and Ken got, mine autographed to me. But I've still got it. And if someone, I'd like to see that thing go to someone who would enjoy it and appreciate it.
This is one of the times that I wish to live in the US right now. Super good piece of history.
Yeah.
Well, Randall, do you happen to have any question for me, like for Gripsport in South America or anything?
Yeah. How do we support everyone in South America? I think this is so great because it's kind of surprised me that, we got a lot of grip guys, Europe, obviously, North America, Europe, Asia, and we need to get South America on board because this is a wonderful thing. And, one of the great things in some of Ode's contests was that he had people competing, and they were competing at the level of someone coming out and doing a clean and jerk with just the bar. But, they were doing it. They wanted to do the lifts, and that's what they could lift. And grip is like that. I mean, our guide, is pretty easy to close, or you get a zenith agility, and people can lift whatever they want on the Rolling Thunder. They can have air on the loading pin, and then you can have guys who are super strong, guys who could crush a potato or an apple in their bare hands. And there are so many strength sport traditions in Central and South America, for example, that intersect with grip strength that, it's really, there's a lot of untapped potential there. I mean, for enjoyment and advancement. That was always the deal I felt in Europe, that it wasn't a coincidence that a lot of the countries that had strong strength, kind of funny, strong strength sport traditions, but, there's deep roots and a lot of success, produce a lot of really strong grip guys, countries that historically have been very good in like Olympic style weightlifting, and they're producing top grip stuff. I wrote a thing once in Ironmind News. I said the Russians are coming. We had the first guy certify on the 3 or the second. I was like, this is the beginning. They're going to really, we got guys coming from that part of the world, that come from traditions of great strength, and this is just another way to demonstrate. And we need to do that in Central and South America, and so I'm curious. Anything that we can do, let us know to help, and salute all you guys. Contests, competitors, people working to promote it, journalists writing about it, and anything Ironmind can do to help support it, we're really happy to do.
Perfect. I will contact you about that later, because we plan to do like big tournaments and big things, because I am a big believer of there's a lot of talent in the Spanish-speaking countries, but they haven't had the opportunity to put their hands on the equipment and literally, and to try themselves. So that's one of my missions. And Randall, last words belong to you. Which final message would you like to share with the audience of this wonderful interview?
Thank you, guys. I'm going to tell you, the first time I went to St. Petersburg for an arm lifting contest, and I saw all these guys. I mean, so enthusiastic. I mean, and even I got to tell you honestly, there are some people there with imitations of our equipment. But I thought I was so happy. I was so thrilled. I thought, look at this, this thing that I believed in. I believed in this gripper, okay, and it allowed us to start this, and it's given me a great life. Met all kinds of interesting people, gone to, a lot of places. And so I thank all of you guys, and I take pride in the fact that you enjoy this thing too. It shows me that I wasn't just crazy.
Perfect. And yes, we enjoy it so much. Actually, here in Chile, I am doing like trainings in parks every other weekend. So people love the grippers. People love the little big cord. People really love. They love the blockbuster.
Yeah,
it's one of the favorites.
Those things like that and Rolling Thunder are great to do in situations like that. You bring plates and you have a challenge, a certain amount of weight. Here we put like $20 bill under, $100 bill, whatever. If you lift this, you can have the money, right? And it's easy to set up that way. I mean, another one that's great visual is COC Silver Bullet Hold, because people love that. Like in Finland, like there's a tradition sort of like in professional cycling. There's some joy in suffering, right? Or watching other people suffer through endurance sports, right? And the guy's shaking or whatever with the COC Silver Bullet. COC Silver Bullet's also great because it completely neutralizes the hand thing, the hand size of your hand. And that's a good one. You have people come up and use whatever strength group you want. How long can you hold this? And when it drops, it drops. So thanks for doing that. It's a great way to get some converts.
Perfect. Well, Randall, thanks to you for all this time, because
my pleasure. Yeah,
it was a great conversation. It was great to touch many subjects where people have just merely theories or things that they think you said or you do, but I wanted to hear it from the man himself. And for the audience, stay tuned for further episodes, because we are in season 4 and we have super great founders, athletes, promoters coming up. So stay tuned for the next one.
Thank you.